Ever been called a jack of all trades? And most of the time, people say it's like an insult. Like, oh, you're not really great at one thing, but you just double here and there. But here's the thing, the full quote is actually jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than master of one. So in today, I want to talk about why being a jack of all trades is actually one of the biggest strengths you can have in this world. Okay, in today's world, being multi-skilled is not a weakness. Actually, it's a superpower. A jack of all trades can adapt, ship roles, and learn fast. Well, where specialists may struggle outside their specialty, a generalist thrives because they see the bigger picture. I would say that we oftentimes misunderstood that's the first part. Jack of all trades are those individuals that often serves the connectors. You might not be the deepest coder or designer or the strategist, but you understand each field well enough to collaborate and translate between them. Well, that will makes you a valuable person in a team or in a leadership. So for example, you know that I've always been that person who wore many hats. Back when the days when I was a civil engineer, actually I was still now, but I was managing construction projects, dealing with numbers, blueprints, and site problems. But along the way, I shifted into a project management where suddenly I wasn't just solving technical issues. I was also handling people, schedules, and other budgets. So, but it didn't stop me from there. On the other side, I found myself creating designs on Canva, as well as posters, layouts, and of course, even social media content. This vlogging is one examples of that. I'm trying to do vlogging because this is again my way of motivating others. And I don't even know how good or bad it looks in camera angle because I'm just only using a laptop camera, but it's okay. So again, it's a totally different world, right? Cause yet it gave me a creative outlet that is not given by my technical work. So and now I am pursuing my legal career. So I've been saying that I'm studying cases, drafting documents, and even learning how the law shapes everything around us. And it's really different from engineering to designing to managing and into law. So it's really different. So when people ask me, how's your specialty? I would usually stop and maybe freeze because honestly, how do I know? How do I choose? Because I can build, I can manage, I can design, and I can argue. But for the longest time, I thought that having one single specialty made me less than others because society often glorifies the specialists, the surgeons who does one thing perfectly, or the coder because he's very good in computers, in codes, the lawyer only who handles one field of a law. But I've come to realize something important. While a generalist, maybe people like me and maybe people like you are just as important as they are. Because while specialists are pro or go deep on their specialty, of course, the generalist can see the bigger picture. So we connect the dots, we adapt, and it's very powerful. Another would be why we should value specialists too much. You know, society really loves specialists. We admire the surgeon again who spends 20 years mastering one delicate operation. We look up to the lawyer who only practices in one niche field. So we praise the scientist who dedicates a lifetime to studying just one rare phenomenon. And don't get me wrong, the specialists are really amazing because they studied for a long time. They specialize for one aspect of their life for a very long time. So we need them. Of course, if I ever need a brain surgery, of course, I don't want someone that who's just kind of good or just good at everything, but I want someone who specializes on brain surgery. So therefore, I want the best. I want the best brain surgeon alive, of course. But here's the catch. Another is what happens when the world changes? What happens when that narrow lane suddenly doesn't matter anymore? Think about it. On our previous life or back in the day, videotape technicians were in demand. If your VCR broke, they were the experts. Then DVDs came in, and those specialists became relevant almost overnight. And then the DVD experts, well, streaming arrived and suddenly their skills didn't matter much either. So, and honestly, I've seen this happen in my own journey. I would say that I started out again as a civil engineer. I am super laser focused on construction and design. But later on, I realized that the industry was shifting. So I needed to move into project management because, you know, it wasn't just about building anymore. It was about leading people and handling budgets, managing timelines, as I always say. So then another shift came because pandemic came. So most of us uh, work from home. So which is before is not accepted in our country. So when digital skills became important, that's where I pick up the Canva design, usually creating visuals and content, which actually, funny enough, ended up being just as valuable in certain moments as my engineering knowledge. So, and now here I am pursuing another career because the world keeps changing, and I refuse to get stuck in just one lane. So that's the point. Especially shine when things are stable, but when the ground shifts under your feet, and of course it always does. It's the generalists who adapt, survive, and thrive. So when you can pull insights from different disciplines, example law, engineering, arts, business, even in your daily life, you create fresh solutions that other might miss. Innovation usually comes from crossing boundaries, and generalists are naturally wired for this. I would say that we have creativity in every problem solving. So we are also adaptable. And adaptability is a superpower. Life doesn't follow a manual. So it doesn't come in with step by step instructions where you just follow the guide and everything works out. No, life throws curveballs and sometimes those curveballs come fast. And this is exactly where being a jack of all trades becomes such a superpower. Because when you've done a little bit of everything, when you've trained yourself to learn across different fields, you don't just build skills, you build adaptability. What does it mean of being a jack of all trades? You can learn fast, you can pivot when situations change, and most importantly, you can survive almost anywhere. For example, take the pandemic. One day we're all living our normal, and then overnight everything changed. What happened? Schools were closed, offices shut down. Suddenly, people had to switch roles. Parents become teachers. Yeah, grandkids become tech support for their grandparents. People who never even thought about selling online suddenly become entrepreneurs on Facebook, Marketplace, and other e-commerce business. You know, I saw it happen everywhere, especially struggled at first because their one specific role was put on hold. But generally, they found new ways to keep going. Some started baking bread. Actually, I've tried baking bread, but it just got me bored. But I love baking bread. Others sold food trays. Some opened small online shops. And I also do open small online shop. I do the e-commerce. So some became freelancer. That's adaptability and that's resilience. And honestly, I felt it in my own life too. You know, as a civil engineer, a lot of site work slowed down. Actually, we were not allowed to work on site. So there were delays, restrictions, and projects hanging the balance. And I had only seen myself as an engineer and nothing else. But I'd been stuck waiting. But because I had also experience as a project manager, I could focus on planning and other documentation and reorganizing process remotely. And you know, outside of that, I learned other skills. That's where I learned baking. I learned designing, the Canva design, digital arts and layouts. So, which opened new opportunities for me. It wasn't just engineering, it wasn't just law, but it was useful. And at times of uncertainty, being useful is what matters. And on top of that, I doubled down on my legal studies. I figured if the world is shifting, I need to keep shifting too. So instead of sitting around worrying, I kept learning and preparing myself for the next chapter of my life. So that's the beauty of being a jack of all trades. When one door closes, you don't just stare at it in frustration. You already see five other doors you could try opening. You don't get stuck waiting for the old normal to come back because you know how to adjust to the new normal. And that is the truth. In today's world, adaptability isn't just a nice to have. Actually, it's a survival. The people who thrive aren't always the ones with the deepest knowledge in one narrow field. They're the ones who come roll in the punches, learn something new, and they learn quickly and make themselves valuable in different situations. That's what being a jack of all trades is all about. It's not just collecting random skills, it's building mindset of flexibility. And once you have that, there's almost nothing life can throw at you that you can't handle. Actually, my partner would say that I am too impulsive to do things because if I saw something on YouTube or if I saw something on video, I wanted to try it because I know I can, because I know that I can excel in everything. That's what my mindset are, you know. And I often says that he was not supportive on my influencer journey because he knows I'm too busy and it's not a bad thing. He knows that I'm too busy and doing this would just take up my time instead of studying. But I needed to find time because I I love what I'm doing. I love giving motivation. I love giving inspiration. So I just needed to to do it in secret as of now. So again, it's connecting the dots, meaning one of the coolest things about being a jack of all trades, it's not just that you can adapt, it's that you can connect the dots in ways that most people can. I would say that specialists again, specialists are experts, yes, but they might struggle to see how their work connects with everything else. While as generalists or the jack of all trades, live in those connections. We're in the bridge between worlds. Okay, let me ask you, how many you here have ever used a random skills you thought you'd never need, but then it suddenly saved you? Maybe cooking for an event, fixing a computer, or even designing a simple poster. Okay, that's what I mean. Those little skills connect with the when you least expect it. For example, on my work, so I work as a project manager, but then again, since since pandemic came, I needed to shift on another work. So that's kind of designing or the work from home legal assistant. So going back, think about the division. Most big breakthrough don't come from just one field. They happen when two or more worlds collide. Do you know Steve Jobs? He famously said that his calligraphy class, something that seemed completely unrelated to computers, was the reason Apple had such beautiful fonts and design. And that wasn't just tech, that was design plus creativity and business. So all coming together. I've seen this in my own life too. I wasn't in engineering. I wasn't just looking at blueprints. Because of my background in project management, I was also thinking about how timelines, budget, and teams would fit into actual construction. And when I started learning law, I began to realize, wait a minute, contracts and liability, compliance, those things matter just as much as the design itself. Suddenly, I wasn't just seeing one piece of the puzzle. I was seeing some all the pieces fit together. Even when something as simple combo design at first you'd think, what does graphic design have to do with engineering or law? But in reality, design has helped me present ideas more clearly. Actually, Canva can be used on my presentations now, whether it's pitching project plan, explaining a legal concept, or making information more engaging. It taught me how to simplify complexity visually, and that makes me more effective in every other role. Let me ask you another question. How many of you here have ever explained something complicated to a friend or a child, and you had to simplify it so they get it? And that's connecting the dots too. That's what generalists do naturally. We take the complex, we borrow the different words, and we make sense of it. That's the advantage of being a generalist. You don't just collect skills like trophies. You actually learn how to mix them, how to cross pollinate ideas. You might not be the deepest expert in one lane, but you can talk to the expert, understand what they're saying, and then connect it to another field. You are the translator, the bridge, the one who makes things work together. And in the real world, that's incredibly valuable because most problems today don't belong to just one category. They're complex, messy, and interconnected. Specialists bring the depth, but generalists we bring the connections. We see how everything fits. You know that in yourself. You, even in when just someone talking that is out of your league or out of your expertise, but still you can understand what he's saying in just layman's, okay, in layman's terms. So part five would be that everyday jack, the everyday jack of all trades. Being a jack of all trades isn't just about careers or big projects. It shows up in our everyday lives too. Let me ask you, how many of you here have ever fixed something at home, even though you're not a professional? So, me, of course. Maybe unplug a sink. Yes, I do that. Change a light bulb or figured out why the Wi-Fi suddenly stopped working. Then that's already being a jack of all trades. How about cooking? Some of you may not be chefs, but you can whip up a decent meal when the situation calls for it. Or maybe you've had to struggle multiple roles in one day, like being an employee, a parent, a friend, and sometimes even a part-time counselor, or even a mom. Being a mom is jack of all trades. So I'll share something from my own life. Again, as a civil engineer, people expected me to only be good at technical stuff, but outside of that, I was also managing teams again, doing those presentations. So, and now diving deep into my legal career, on paper, those things don't seem connected, but in real life, they come all together because life doesn't care about job titles. Life just throws a problem at you and asks, can you handle this? And when you're a jack of all trades, your answer is usually, yes, I may not know it yet, but I can figure it out. Yes. That's what makes generally so valuable, not just in business, but at home, in relationships, in everyday challenges. We're the ones who fill in the gaps, solve unexpected problems, and keep things moving. Be truthful in yourself. Be honest in yourself. You know that. You usually do manage even your relationship. So so don't ever underestimate those little everyday skills because sometimes being able to cook, fix, manage, and care for others, that's what really makes you indispensable. And in part of resilience and in career growth, one of the biggest benefits of being a jack of all trades is resilience. See, careers don't stay the same forever. Industries change, jobs disappear, and technology keeps moving forward. So if you're locked into just one thing, that can be scary. But if you're a generalist, you've already built the habit of adapting. You've got transferable skills that let you shift when needed. So I've seen this in my own life because I'd been transferred in many different career paths. So I realized that success was just about being buildings. It was about people, systems, and leadership. And those experiences comes together. Engineering taught me problem solving. Project management taught me leadership. Design taught me clarity. And law ties it all into structure and advocacy. Law becomes my way of motivation and a power of communication. So that's resilience, that's growth. Even shift didn't erase what I knew. It added another layer. So this is where generalists thrive. Because when the world changes, and it always will, you don't panic. You say, okay, all right, I've done this before. I've learned new things. I've switched roles. I've adapted. And I know I can do it again. So if you ever felt unsure because your career path was sent in straight line, so let me tell you this. That's not a weakness. Actually, that's a strength. That's your superpower. That's a flexibility, the ability to grow in different directions. That's exactly what makes you future proof. Resilience in changing times is a positive attitude. So positive skill. Jobs, industries, and technologies evolve fast. Especially risk being left behind when their skill set becomes outdated. But jack of all trades, well, they pivot, adapt, and they keep moving forward. We kept moving forward. So, on the other side, the personal side, being jack of all trades isn't about the work or careers, it's also about who you are as a person. For the longest time, I used to feel a little insecure about it because when people ask me, yes, again, so what's your specialty? I would never answer simple because I don't know what's one thing that I specialize. And in a world that celebrates specialists, sometimes that made me feel like I didn't belong. But over time, I realized being curious about many things, exploring different fields, and reinventing myself. That's not confusion, that's growth. When we're looking back to our journey, when I look back actually on my journey, engineering, project management, design, and law, I don't see randomness anymore. I see chapters of my life. So I see proof that I wasn't afraid to try, to learn, to step out of my lane when life called for it. And honestly, that's freeing because being a jack of all trades means that you've never stuck in one identity forever. You can be an engineer today, you can be a manager tomorrow, you can be a designer on the side, a lawyer in the future, you can be a vlogger, you can be a actor, actress, you can be all of it because you're not limited by just one label. Let me ask you, but how many of you have ever been told you were all over the place? Maybe people said you're scattered or you can't focus. I want you to flip that thought because what they see is as scattered, I would see as versatile or versatility. When they see us unfocused, well, I would say we are curious. That's the personal side of being a jack of all trades. It means giving yourself permission to explore, to expand, and to embrace how many sides of who you are. And that to me is something to be proud of. So let's bring this all together. We started with that phrase, jack of all trades, master of none, but for so long people use it as a way to downplay us, as if having many skills, many interests, many roles was somehow a weakness. But the truth is, being a jack of all trades is not about being average at everything. It's about being adaptable. It's about being curious. It's about having the courage to say, I may not know it yet, but I know I can learn. So let's look back what we talk about. Especially shines when things are stable, but generally thrive when things change. Adaptability is just in survival. It's a superpower. Generalists are the connectors, the translators, the ones who make all the pieces of it. And in everyday life, we're the ones who fill in the gaps and keeps things moving. My own career journey, engineer, project manager, design, law student, I've seen how each skill, each role, each experience wasn't wasted. They all came together to shape who I am today. So that's the real gift of being jack of all trades. So the next time someone asks you, what's your specialty? Don't feel pressured to shrink yourself into one box. Smile and say, I do many things, and that's exactly why I always find a way forward. Because at the end of the day, the world doesn't just need a masters of one. It needs people who can connect, who can adapt, and rise to whatever challenge comes next. So, and that's the power being the jack of all trades. You should embrace your identity. Being a jack of all trades doesn't mean you lack depth. It means you're endlessly curious, flexible, and resourceful. It means you are capable of learning whatever life requires of you. That's a gift that everyone has. You are the jack of all trades.